Next on Sisterhood of the Second Act.
A survey done by the Virginia Department of Health in 2015 found nearly 300,000 live with disabilities as a result of traumatic brain injury. Jodi Judge is the Executive Director of Brain Injury Services of Southwest Virginia. She joins us to talk about how the organization helps survivors and their families. Mary Julienne from the Library of Virginia spends the majority of her workday researching the untold stories of Virginians who made the Old Dominion what it is today. She sheds light on the Dictionary of Virginia Biography. We'll meet these women on this edition of Sisterhood of the Second Act, right after this.
Sisterhood of the Second Act is brought to you by looking for your first home or retirement home. Realtor Monica Nicely can help you find it. Whether you're moving in or out of the Roanoke region, call Monica 540-449-2019, 540-449-2019. Alcova Mortgage Loan Officer Jonathan Sweat helps you seal the deal with the loan to suit your needs with great rates and terms. Call Jonathan 540-314-8843, 540-314-8843.
Alcova Mortgage, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID number 40508, MLSConsumerAccess.org. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to credit approval.
I'm going to be an oak tree.
I think I'll be a dogwood tree.
My kids said they'd be looking for a thorny tree for me.
With Evergreen, you can be a tree. Our biodegradable urn combines your ashes, natural soil additives, and a native tree of your choice. Be a tree and grow for tomorrow.
I want to be a tree.
Learn more at evergreenmemorialtrust.com.
Pat Lucas is committed to providing independent financial advice to individuals, families, and small businesses. Contact Pat at 540-798-8104. 540-798-8104. Securities and investment advisory services are offered solely through Equity Services Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, 4401 Starkey Road, Roanoke, Virginia 24018, 540-989-4600. Cabbie Fashions take you from the boardroom to the beach. Dress for a garden party or a night on the town. Independent cabbie stylist Darlene Marshall will make sure you look your best no matter what the occasion. She'll bring the store to your home for you and your friends or schedule a private consultation. Call Darlene 540-330-6819, 540-330-6819, or find her on Instagram at Dapper Darling, on Facebook at Darlene Marshall Independent Cabbie Stylist. Now from the Fox Radio Roanoke studio, here's Kathy Heberly.
Welcome to Sisterhood of the Second Act. I'm Kathy Heberly. There's a new brain injury every 21 seconds in the United States. Brain injury can be sudden and traumatic, the result of a fall or an accident, or it can go unrecognized until unexplained symptoms appear, as is often the case with sports injuries. Brain Injury Services of Southwest Virginia work with people who have acquired brain injuries, or ABI. These are brain injuries that are not hereditary, congenital, degenerative, or caused by brain trauma. Jodi Judge is the Executive Director of Brain Injury Services of Southwest Virginia, and she's here to tell us more. Thank you for joining us, Jodi.
It's a delight to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. And can you tell us how prevalent is brain injury?
Absolutely. I always like to talk in the numbers and regarding what we have right here in our backyard in the state of Virginia. And so the latest numbers indicate that we have around 300,000 Virginians that are disabled due to brain injury. So not even individuals that have brain injury, but are disabled. And so that correlates to 1 in 30 Virginians.
That's a lot.
It is, absolutely.
And how are brain injuries quantified? Are we talking accidents, illnesses, all of the above?
There are a variety of different mechanisms of injury.
Okay.
And so we often think of traumatic brain injuries, things that are external forces coming and causing injury. So those are motor vehicle accidents, those could be assaults. The number one cause of brain injuries now is falls, and it does make sense because
Sure.
the baby boomers are getting older, and so they're the largest population at this point in time. We have non-traumatic brain injuries that could be things such as strokes, brain tumors, anoxic injuries, which can come from near drownings, substance use, overdosing, things of that nature. So it comes in many shapes and forms.
It certainly does, and probably a lot of people aren't aware of that. So that's why you're here. You're going to give us some information. And we are talking with Jodi Judge, Executive Director of the Brain Injury Services of Southwest Virginia. So what services does BIS offer?
So we offer 4 programs in terms of services, case management being our primary service that we offer.
Okay.
So that is basically meeting with individuals and discovering what needs and resources they need to be connected to. And so that in and of itself is a unique type of process, because we say if you've seen one brain injury, you've seen one brain injury. Everybody's an individual, and how their brain injury presents in them is very individualized. We also offer a telehealth program called CLICK. This was initially developed to address the social isolation that our folks find after injury, especially in the rural areas. And that was developed in 2009, and now we're able to actually offer that throughout our entire service area. We bring in things that work on compensatory strategies, budgeting, financial matters, also those holistic alternative therapies that we have seen in the research is extremely beneficial to healing and recovery. Things like mindfulness, trauma-informed yoga, music therapy, art therapy, that a lot of times our folks would not have access to because either it's not available or insurance isn't interested in covering it.
So they need these services, and you help them. You connect them a little bit with ways to get it.
We have our own instructors that provide those services as well.
Excellent. And I heard, now, how does your community living connection help clients?
So that is our CLICK program. That is the telehealth program.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So that is all this, it sounds like you offer many services in a variety of different ways that they can help. And what area do you serve?
So we have a very large footprint in the state. We are the second largest provider in the state at right over 14,000 square miles.
Wow.
Yes.
That is huge.
So we're serving Southwest Virginia, parts of Central, parts of South Side. So basically Western Virginia and beyond.
Okay, so this is a very large area. So how do you reach these clients?
That's a great question. We are very committed to getting the word out. And so as we have the services that we offer, but we're also tasked with the responsibility to make sure that community resources are aware of who we are and what we do. And also that they're probably serving their own consumers that have brain injury. And so we do a lot of public education, and we do that all for free. So we'll go to the local police department and train their staff on brain injury. We'll go to the community service boards. We'll go to the school systems and provide that training. Therefore, they can begin to identify who they are serving that may also benefit from our services.
That's wonderful. And we are talking with Jodi Judge, Executive Director of Brain Injury Services of Southwest Virginia. And how do people access your services?
So we are all about removing barriers. So our access to services is quite simple. It can come from a referral from your doctor, from your counselor, from your caregiver, your family member, but it can also be a self-referral. So it's really as simple as either going to our website and accessing the application packet, or calling our office and saying, I have a loved one that has an ABI, or I myself believe that I have experienced brain injury. What can I do to get involved with you all?
Okay. And what if people don't, they have somebody but they're not sure? Is there a way they could get that person checked? Perhaps they've noticed changes in a person, and should they contact you first? How do they get that confirmed?
Absolutely. It's a great question. It's a question that we get asked often.
Yes.
So part of what we do as well is information and referral. So folks may say, hey, I've noticed, some differences in my loved one since their stroke, or since they fell off the ladder putting on the Christmas lights, or something like that.
Sure.
And we can help walk them through the necessary steps needed to get the evaluations that could substantiate their injury.
So go ahead, Jodi. Tell us some of the signs or symptoms that might be warnings for people to look out for if they suspect a brain injury.
Sure. And as mentioned before, it's very individualized, but the common symptoms that we do seem to see across some of our folks have to do with, short-term memory loss, some confusion, dizziness, headaches, changes in mood, changes in stamina, like easily fatigued, balance and coordination issues, emotional regulation would be, if you were an active, go-get-it type of person,
sure,
and now you're finding it really hard just to be up and around for like an hour, I would say, chances are maybe there is an issue there. And we always say, just don't risk it.
Right.
Don't risk it. And the biggest advocate you have for yourself is yourself. Okay. And so if you know your body better than anybody,
that's right.
And so if you feel something is off, then make sure that you reach out.
That sounds wonderful advice. And what brought you to Brain Injury Services of Southwest Virginia?
Oh, well, I began my career as a job coach, which they called us back in the day, and now
sure,
they use employment consultant. And I was privileged enough to be able to do some work with individuals with brain injuries that were looking to be employed.
Okay.
And so from that, I had a life change. I had my son, who is now almost grown, but and I needed a job that was more conducive to having a set schedule. There was an opening for a case manager at Brain Injury Services of Southwest Virginia, so I applied. I got the job, and here we are, 14 and a half years later.
Well, we're very glad that you are there. And how is BIS funded?
So the 70% of our overall operational budget is funded by the state. And then we are tasked to really find the rest. So we do grants. We ask all of the localities, which for us are over 50 localities in the state,
sure,
to please include us in their budget. And we have some that do that, and we're grateful for that.
Sure.
Private donations, we do that. And then we have events, fundraising events.
Well, tell us a little bit about that, because people are always interested in those, especially, are they at the local levels?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So we do things, whether we partner with community resources like Runabout Roanoke that decided to donate a portion of their sales for the month of March, which is brain injury awareness.
Oh, wonderful.
We have Farm Burguesa that included us on their Charity Tuesdays, the Roanoke Co-op who did their Roundup program, and we were a beneficiary of that, to for instance, an upcoming event that we have on September the 15th out at Sinkland Farms, which is in Christiansburg.
Oh, good.
Yes, it's Blues Barbecue and Brain Injury Awareness. So we're asking the community to come out, eat a good meal.
Do they need to buy tickets in advance or anything? Or
no,
they can do it on that day?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is wonderful. So to wrap up, do you need volunteers, and what types of jobs would they do?
So in the past, we really have utilized volunteers for those events that we have in the community.
Okay.
And so I would just say, if you're looking to volunteer with us, we have several events that are coming up for our new fiscal year, some of which I can't talk about yet.
Okay.
But we always need additional manpower.
Okay. So that sounds like something that would be available for people that can volunteer to do.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here today, Jodi. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. We'll have the Brain Injury Services of Southwest Virginia's contact information on our show notes at sisterhoodofthesecondAct.com. And when we come back, the Dictionary of Virginia Biography tells the life stories of Virginians rarely seen in history books. We'll learn more when Sisterhood of the Second Act continues after this.
Pat Lucas is committed to providing independent financial advice to help women build wealth and security. Call Pat at 540-798-8104, 540-798-8104. Securities and investment advisory services are offered solely through Equity Services Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, 4401 Starkey Road, Roanoke, Virginia 24018, 540-989-4600.
I'm going to be an oak tree.
I think I'll be a dogwood tree.
My kids say they be looking for a thorny tree for me.
With Evergreen, you can be a tree. Our biodegradable urn combines your ashes, natural soil additives, and a native tree of your choice. Be a tree and grow for tomorrow.
I want to be a tree.
Learn more at evergreenmemorialtrust.com.
Looking for your first home or retirement home? Realtor Monica Nicely can help you find it. Whether you're moving in or out of the Roanoke region, call Monica 540-449-2019, 540-449-2019. Alcova Mortgage Loan Officer Jonathan Sweat helps you seal the deal with a loan to suit your needs with great rates and terms. Call Jonathan 540-314-8843, 540-314-8843.
Alcova Mortgage, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID number 40508, MLSConsumerAccess.org. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to credit approval.
Once again from the Fox Radio Roanoke studio, here's Kathy Heberly.
Welcome back to Sisterhood of the Second Act. I'm Kathy Heberly. Staff at the Library of Virginia are working hard to give a broader picture of Virginia history. The Dictionary of Virginia Biography offers a more inclusive narrative. Mary Julienne has worked at the Library of Virginia since 1999. She was the co-curator of the library's 2020 exhibition, We Demand: Women's Suffrage in Virginia, and co-author of the Campaign for Women's Suffrage in Virginia. But primarily, she is an editor of the library's ongoing Dictionary of Virginia Biography project. And that's what Mary is here to talk about today. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you. And you do wear many hats, don't you? It's really nice to hear. And I'm very interested in this aspect of your job. Can you tell me, first of all, we think of library, we think librarian. Are you a researcher?
I do a lot of research for a number of projects at the library. Yes. Exhibitions, as we mentioned, working on the dictionary project and other, numerous things that we have going on.
And you find most of your research, you were telling me, give me a couple little examples of how you might do research for a project from a century ago.
So like if we are working on a biography from someone, say from the early 20th century, we try to ground all of our research in, primary sources, not always, just relying on what other people have written before. So we'll use things like census records and birth records, marriage records. Newspapers are a great source. The library has a large collection, many of which we have scanned and are available online. Keyword searchable.
Keyword search, I like that.
Which has made a huge difference in the number of years that I've worked on this project. Yes. We used to have to scroll through microfilm.
Yes.
So now you can search and find
Don't you feel very modern? Yes. So you're here today to talk about the ongoing Dictionary of Virginia Biography project, and give us an overview. What is it?
Well, it started more than 30 years ago. There were several historians at the Library of Virginia who wanted to broaden the definition of who is significant in Virginia history. Previous biographical reference works had pretty much focused on, the governors, military leaders, men who owned lots of property. So they wanted to, include, more regular people who are significant to their communities or maybe their professions, and include more women, Virginia Indians, African Americans, just to bring those people who have, been ignored in Virginia history books, bring them back into Virginia's story.
Excellent. So you did mention a few people are included in this project, but what are the criteria for inclusion?
The most important one is that you have to be dead. There are no living people in the project. This project, yes. Everybody, and when we were publishing printed volumes, now we publish online, you would have had to have been dead like at least 10 years before the project was published, just to sort of help, get an understanding of like how sometimes you might not realize, it might be a while before you realize how significant a person, you kind of get the historical perspective. You don't have to necessarily like be born in Virginia. It can be that you came here and you had, the significance of your work, was in Virginia. There are some Virginians who left, partly because they had to. One of them is Moncure Conway, who was an abolitionist, and in the 19th century, it was not. Right. He couldn't really stay in Virginia very well, so he left and traveled, but he always self-identified as a Virginian. So that's someone who gets included.
So we are talking with Mary Julienne from the Library of Virginia, and the project started in the 1990s. And how has it evolved over the years?
Well, we did publish print volumes. They were in alphabetical order. So basically everybody had to kind of wait their turn to in the alphabet. So for the past decade, we've been publishing the biographies online. And some of them are published with Virginia Humanities Project called Encyclopedia of Virginia, which is an online resource on Virginia history that is freely available. And since we were publishing online and not, tied to the alphabetical order, we've actually worked more like around different themes or subjects. We did about 6 biographies of women related to the women's suffrage campaign. And then we've also been working on a project that we had a National Endowment for the Humanities grant with Encyclopedia of Virginia to document the African-American experience after the Civil War. So we've been working on biographies of the African-American legislators who were elected to the General Assembly in the decades after the Civil War, of whom there are more than most people probably imagine.
So what have you learned from working on the project?
A lot of things. That there are more interesting Virginians than you really learn about in school, honestly. But having a wider expansion of what's important, it gives you a different perspective on things that are important. Like with the suffrage movement, people don't even pay attention to it because they said, oh, Virginia didn't ratify the 19th Amendment, so the suffragists in Virginia were failures. Well, that's not exactly true. They built up, a huge statewide organization and built a lot of support for women's suffrage. And it wasn't really until we put all these biographies together, that you see that.
So were there any surprises?
Well, there are always surprises. And one of the things too, like I mentioned with the African-American legislators, between 1869 and the early 1890s, there were more than 80 Black men who were elected to the General Assembly, the House of Delegates, and the State Senate. And they did important work that they often haven't really been given credit for.
I can imagine.
So, yes.
And how does the information in the Dictionary of Virginia Biography project differ from what you find in history books?
Well, as I mentioned, we do always try to ground all our research in the primary sources. There have been times where you'll find somebody's birth date has been repeated, just from one, book to another, but it might have been the wrong date or the wrong year, but nobody ever actually, went to a family Bible to check or the birth register. And, there's things like that
you pick up on. That sounds good. So I hope that they are open-minded to correcting these
yes.
as this information comes
yes.
out. And we are talking with Mary Julienne from the Library of Virginia, which is really a very interesting thing. So can anyone access this research?
Yes.
And tell us how.
Yes, we do on the Library of Virginia's website. And as I mentioned, Encyclopedia Virginia also has a number of our biographies online. But you can search Dictionary of Virginia Biography on the library's website, and you can get a list of every biography that is available. You can also search it like by locality or like by, someone's profession. You can search by gender.
I was going to say, if you don't have a name, but you want to look
like
some things up, you have other ways to look them up
if
by
you
subject.
You could look up, politicians from Roanoke. You could plug, those different categories in and get a list of names of people that we have.
That sounds really good. So can you just walk in, or do you have to schedule a visit?
You can just walk in to the Library of Virginia.
Okay.
Yep, we are open Tuesdays through Fridays, and then 2 Saturdays every month.
As well?
As well.
So you can walk in without an appointment, but are there some resources you cannot check out? I mean, is it a library of sorts where you can check books out, or
yes.
is it just history that you have to research there?
Right. Well, it's both. We do have circulating books that people can check out. But then things like our manuscript collections or newspapers, things like that are in the building, you have to look at in the building, although we have, many of those resources are now available online.
So you can at least look them up.
So you can look them up online.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have to spend your entire weekend in
That's right.
doing a project. Okay, well then just to wrap up, what do you hope people take away from the Dictionary of Virginia Biography project?
Well, one, to sort of pay attention to the people in your communities and see what it is that they are doing to help in their communities, help in their professions, around the state. There's people doing important work.
Right.
That deserves to be recognized.
That's right. And sometimes we're not even aware of the history and the significance of it if you don't do a little bit of research. So I think that sounds like a really nice resource, and thank you for being here today. That to me is a wonderful thing that you're sharing with us.
Yes, well, thank you.
It's my pleasure. We will have a link to the Dictionary of Virginia Biography project in our show notes at sisterhoodofthesecondAct.com. And we'll be back to wrap up the show after this.
Kathy's wardrobe provided by Cabby stylist Darlene Marshall. See the styles in our show notes at sisterhoodofthesecondAct.com.
I want to thank Jodi Judge and Mary Julienne for joining us today. Jodi taught us about different types of brain injuries and how BIS can support people affected by them. Mary provided us with a better understanding of Virginia history through her work with the Dictionary of Virginia Biography project. I'm Kathy Heberly. Join us next week for another edition of Sisterhood of the Second Act.